Now you were in Franklin. You were a superintendent of College Station ISD, right?
Yeah.
When were you that? What were the years?
Well, I came back here. I got out of the service in the spring of '45. And came down here. Went to school to finish my degree.
Right.
And then in '46, fall of '46, I graduated, and then went to my wife, and I got married that same summer. And we for some reason we wanted to go somewhere, so we went to Greenville, Mississippi. Taught 1 year in Greenville, Mississippi, and then I came back here that summer and ran into Les Richardson, the fellow I was telling you about. Les and I went to A&M, together. And he was teaching over here at Consolidated, and he said, why don't you come over and join us? And so I went to work then in 47 at Consolidated and stayed there until 74.
Oh my goodness.
And during that time I was junior high principal, a teacher and a junior high principal, and then superintendent of schools.
Right. So from 47 to 74.
Yeah. Then when I left there, I went over to University. It was University National Bank then.
Right.
And I stayed over there till '95.
I see.
So I had two different careers, so to speak.
Two full careers.
So you retired in '95? I see.
Yeah.
Wow. I see.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of changes.
I bet you have.
I bet so.
Goodness.
We set up the first junior high over here, Consolidated. We called it a middle school. They call it that now too, I guess. We had 2 sections of 7th grade and 2 sections of 8th grade.
Right.
A total of maybe 100 kids in those 2 grades.
Yeah.
Wow. It's grown a little bit.
Yeah, it's grown tremendously. Yeah.
Now you pronounce your name Riedel?
Riedel, yeah.
Taylor Reidel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell us just sort of where did you grow up?
Oh,
and
okay.
how did you get to A&M and into the service? Were you in the Army Air Corps?
Yeah.
Okay. Sort of takes a little bit of that.
Okay, well, I grew up in a small German-Polish community down in DeWitt County in the Victoria, Cuero area, Goliad area.
Right.
Yorktown was it. There were about 1,500 people, I guess, in Yorktown. And the Riedel family was one of the more or less original settlers there. They had a drugstore that they started in, I think it's something like 1860 or something like that. And so I grew up in a small town, worked as a soda jerk in a drugstore.
My dad did the same thing.
And everybody,
that was his first job.
in a small town like that, everybody knows everybody.
Right.
And then when I finished high school, I came down here to A&M, and then we joined, and then I went into the Air Force.
Right. So you were a class of 44?
44.
I see.
Went into the Air Force and got my completed training in 40 class. I was class of 44B. So it was February of 44. I got my wings and so forth. Then I went over to England and stayed over there about a year. Flew 35 missions in a B-17. And then came back, and they sent us out to the West Coast to get ready to go to Japan but then the war was over.
Right.
So we didn't go back. They set up a system of points.
Right.
And you got so many points for so many missions. You got or like you got an air medal, and that was so many points and so forth. When you accumulated enough points, then you could get discharged.
Right.
But we had to do 35 missions at that time to be able to leave over there. So
yeah. And that's how many you did.
That's how many I did. Yeah, that's how many I did.
So when you joined the Air Force, where did you train? Where did you sort of take us from there over to Europe?
Well, I joined the Air Force I enlisted over in Victoria, which was about 50 miles from there. Then they called me about it. Yeah, I can't remember. It was maybe January or so of the year before I got my commission, and we went to Shepherd Field for 6 weeks of just regular basic training. And then when we completed that, they sent us out to Santa Ana, California for pre-flight type deal. When we completed that, they started a new program at that time, and they started sending the people who were enrolled in the cadet program to various universities for a short period of time. So I got sent to the University of Denver in Denver, Colorado. And since they were just setting the program up, it was normally a 3 months course, but to get it going, they had a 6 months course, 6 weeks course, 2 months course, and then a 3 months course, to kind of phase it in. So they took over. They took over the fraternity houses at the University of Denver, and that's where they quartered us. And I basically, since I signed up in Victoria in that area, I basically was in with most of the University of Texas people. There were a whole bunch. Most of them were. The ex-drum major of the University of Texas band was on there. And Max Umstad, who was a famous tracks man for the University of Texas, won the Drake Relay. He was in with us.
Right.
So when we left there, then they sent us to King City, California, to take primary training. And then when we finished that course at King City, California, they sent us to Bakersfield, California for basic training. And then from basic training, I went to Douglas, Arizona for multi-engine training.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Then I got my wings, and they commissioned in February of '44, and then they sent us to Salt Lake City for get the crews kind of together in orientation, and then from there we reported to Ardmore, Oklahoma, for orientation and get going. Then we left Ardmore, Oklahoma, and went to Lincoln, Nebraska, where we picked up a B-17. The crew did, and then we flew it from there over to Scotland.
Wow. So what was the time from the University of Denver until you basically took off from Nebraska? How long of a time was that? How long of a time?
What was that about? Let's see, I went overseas. I went overseas in the latter, about July of '44, June of '44. See, so.
Okay. So it was about 6 months?
Yeah, something like that.
About 6 months worth of training?
Training in between, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had not flown before?
What?
Anything? I mean,
No.
It always fascinates me how in 6 months' time a person can learn how to fly a B-17.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mind-boggling to me. I bet it was kind of mind-boggling to you too.
Oh, it was, You think back on it and you think, oh my gosh, what's happening? In fact, funny thing, after I was overseas, I got a letter from my mother. And she said, I was talking to a friend, words this effect, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she said she just doesn't understand how the government could turn over expensive aircraft like that to somebody like you. Because you remember people.
They must have great trust in you because our neighbor does not remember.
So, anyway.
So what was this whole time you were training for B-17s,
Yeah.
When you enlisted and got commissioned, did you know that was going to be what you were going to be doing? More or less that you were focused on B-17s, or at least?
Well, after you finished your primary and your basic training, then they decided whether they were going to put you in single engine or multi-engine.
Did you care?
No, in fact, what I wanted to do was to do P-38s, which was a twin-engine fighter, but they decided I didn't need that. I needed to do the other. So I went to multi-engine, then to the B-17. Yeah.
And in the 17, what were you, pilot, co-pilot?
Pilot.
You were the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
There, well, you know, there are, let's see, 4 officers and 5 enlisted men on I got that right. Pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier. That's the 4 officers, and then 2 waist gunners, nose gunner, tail gunner, belly gunner, and the radio man. So 6. They're 10. I said 9. They're 10.
Right.
10 on there. Yeah.
Right.
And these guys that we were together were from all over the United States. They're from California. 2 were, I think, were from I've got it written down there somewhere. 2 from California. Different. One from Nebraska and various ones. And out of that original bunch, there's one left. Me and one other left. He's out in Sacramento, California.
I see.
Yeah. So.
Well, talk about your missions and what you did and.
Yeah. Let me get
You need some cheat notes there?
Yeah, I got some cheat notes.
Let me get it for you. There you go.
There. Okay,
And
thanks.
I'll go ahead and get this around here for you.
Well, yeah, I just bought it. Let me see what I've got. I got some notes here
Good.
that I made.
Ooh, yeah, good stuff. Notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I covered all this. King City, Salt Lake City, Ardmore, Oklahoma. And I went to the 306 bomb group, which was at Bedford, England, which was about 30 miles from London on the main railway line between London and Scotland. So that was a nice location because if you got any time off, you could just run down to the train station and catch a train into London.
Into London, yeah.
And,
Wow.
and come back, you know.
Right.
There was 306 bomb group in the 423rd Bomb Squadron, and an interesting thing about the bomb squadron. This was our.
Those are patch?
That's your patch.
That's our patch.
Yeah.
And early on, they got in some problems with that patch with the Germans, and so they felt it wasn't safe for to be flying missions over Germany with that particular patch. So they quit giving them to us and to the people and said, "We'll give them to you when you finish and get ready to go home, but we don't want you wearing them."
What was their?
Well, because they got a devil-like picture.
Okay. So it was a superstition type of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And who was this that more or less didn't like it?
Germans did. So if you got shot down and you had one of those on your jacket or something,
Oh, okay.
they thought you might be in a little extra danger.
I got it. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what.
Wow.
Now the 306 bomb group is still and I couldn't find one of them. I get a newsletter from them about once a year, twice a year.
So they're still active.
They're still active and have meetings. Sometimes a reunion once a year or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they've gone back over to England and have set up a museum over there.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that was an interesting part there. That was an interesting part of the country, and the people were great.
Right.
You kind of had to feel sorry for them, the British people, because I know you've seen movies of the war and so forth, where these people would go down into the subways,
Right.
and sleep at night because when the Germans were bombing. But that shortly after I got over there, the Germans quit. They didn't have any airplanes coming over, but
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Were you
No.
part of the, or didn't see any of the London nighttime bombing stuff?
oh, we saw some, but not very much. And then later on, they had the unmanned ones. You know,
The V2s.
V2s
Right.
and V1s. One of them was like a little old biplane. You could hear it coming, put, 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 real slow. And you knew you were all right as long as you kept hearing that sound.
Yeah,
When
until it ran out of
when the
gas.
sound quit, that means it was.
It was coming down.
Yeah, they wouldn't even know where they would go. They would just
Yeah.
launch them that way, and when it ran out of fuel,
Right.
it'd go down. And wherever they hit, they hit.
And but the other ones, the V2s they were almost supersonic. You know, you never did hear them until they hit.
Mm-hmm.
They went in a hurry. Anyway, it originally was 25 missions, and then you could leave there. But as the war progressed, and we came up with our P-51 fighter, and got a longer range on the P-47s and the P-38s that the German Air Force was basically knocked out, so you didn't have to contend very much with German fighters. Just occasionally would they come up.
Right.
So what you had to contend with was the anti-aircraft, which is the 88 millimeter was the Germans' best weapon.
So you didn't really have any air traffic until you got over Germany. I guess all your bombing runs were into the German homeland, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I thought I had down here. Well, anyway, the bomb group that I was with was a well-known bomb group. In fact, what's a guy that's on 60 Minutes? It's
Ed Bradley?
no.
Mike Wallace.
That guy that does I can't remember, but famous columnist
Andy Rooney.
Andy Rooney.
Andy Rooney.
He came over and flew a mission with us.
Right. Okay.
And also our bomb group there at Bedford, there was a headquarters for Glenn Miller. You know, he had the Air Force band that played all over.
Right.
And
Did you get to see?
yeah, we
him
saw
perform?
him once.
I love
there.
big band music, so that's just.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would love to have been there to see Glenn Miller.
Yeah.
That's something else.
Yeah. So anyway, the first mission I flew was a fairly short one. It was to Cannes, which was a 5-hour and 25-minute mission. One of the longer ones was would always be to Berlin.
Right.
And
Wow.
Berlin is about an 8 or 9 hour mission. But what they would do, a typical mission deal. This is Berlin right here.
Is that?
Oh wow, that's
Wait a
the,
minute.
yeah,
Oh wow.
that's the record out of my records.
Oh my goodness.
Look at that.
Is she like your flight log here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All, so that shows basically all 35 missions.
Yeah. When and where and how long? So
Goodness gracious.
So you're saying the Berlin run was about 5? So that was about 4.5 hours there, or
yeah.
and then
Well,
back.
yeah, but that was flight time.
Right.
You know, but what normally happened, typical mission deal, a list of crews who was going to fly the next day would be posted on a bulletin board, and you could go by and check and see if your crew was scheduled to fly or what.
Was that a regular thing? Did you know, like every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday you'd be flying?
No, I don't know how they rotated it.
It
but
was
they
just a
were-
hit and miss thing.
Yeah, well, not hit and miss, but I don't know how they did it.
Right.
But anyway, and so they woke you up about 2 o'clock in the morning if you were going to fly that day. Then you go down, have breakfast, and then they'd have a briefing, go over the whole mission, and then you'd take off about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and fly and then get back. So when you say it was a 5-hour mission or a 6-hour mission, that was actual flight time.
Right.
You had about another 5 or 6 hours
Right.
involved in getting set up for
Of getting,
it,
yeah,
you know.
debriefed in the meetings
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
flight off
Yeah.
stuff.
And what was interesting, the takeoff, you know, I don't know if you've seen the B-17, there was one out here
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago.
Right.
You would three planes would line up, 1, 2, 3, and they'd all take off at the same time, the three. And the inside one, if you're going this way, the inside one would turn it first, and then the middle one would take a turn, and the third one, and then you'd go and you'd circle and circle and get back into your three planes in a flight. And then they would join up with two more groups like that, and that'd make 9 planes in your squadron. And and they had 4 squadrons on each base. And on a mission, they would typically have 3 of those squadrons flying and the other one standing down.
So that's 27 planes per mission, is that right? 27?
No, it's 3 times, what did I say, 6?
Oh, it is. Oh, okay, yeah.
18.
18.
And then they'd go up and you'd go and have a rendezvous point, and you'd rendezvous with other groups coming who was under the same situation. And the reason they did that is the positioning of the machine guns on the planes was set up so that if you had a high, a low, 3 here, then there were 3 more here and 3 more here. That had a field of fire that protected your aircraft better from German fighters than if you were going single line. Now, see, the British bombed at night, and they just went in a single line. Because the Germans didn't have night fighters.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But so the and the leads, every aircraft had a bombardier on it, but they didn't sight the lead crew. Actually, the bombardier was in charge of the bombing when they got ready to drop bombs, and the other planes dropped on his bombs. Not.
Yeah. Talk about some of your more memorable missions. I mean, obviously there were some that.
Well, there's
Were you afraid we're going to be last? Or?
Yeah. Well.
All 35.
Yeah. No, but on my 30th mission.
Right.
Let's see, where did I write that down? I got too much junk here. On my 30th mission, we went to. Shoot.
Is it not?
Oh,
Like taking.
look, Lutz, Kendor.
North.
Luxembourg.
Sounds German to me.
Yeah.
Sure does. Yeah.
And we went over. That was we went in over Belgium and into Germany and dropped and came out the same way. But after we dropped, we were flying. Normally we bomb from about 20,000 feet.
Right.
And we were turning off the target, dropped the bombs and coming out, and an 88 millimeter shell went up through our left wing, right by the number 2 engine, but it didn't explode. It went up and exploded above us.
So it went right
through the wing and exploded above us. So, but what it did when it did that, it first punctured the gas tank. So we had a big gasoline leak right on that wing, right outside the cockpit. And then at the same time it got the gasoline tank, it got the hydraulic system. Now, the hydraulic system that it disabled was the one that you control the pitch of your propeller.
Right.
And, and so that went off, and the propeller started windmilling then. You had no control over the speed of the propeller. And it kept going faster and faster, and finally I guess the friction started a fire. So here we had a hole in our wing with the gas leaking out and a fire in the engine right in front of it. So I decided it's time we got out of there, so I gave the signal. and we all bailed out. Fortunately, we were over Belgium
I see.
at that time, not Germany. So
Right.
we landed. We were, in fact, everybody landed okay, and we got back. We were back in. Belgian people picked us up, and we were back in England a couple of days later.
I'll be darned.
And the interesting sidelight to that was that they'd give you an R&R if you had something like that happen to you.
Right.
And so our crew got an R&R, and they sent us out to the British countryside, and happened that the place they sent us for R&R was Lord Mountbatten's summer home out in the countryside. So,
Right.
so we were there 5 or 6 days, and I met her, and we played some cards together.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
How about that? That's a nice R&R.
Yeah, it was nice.
Did you ever find out what happened to the plane?
Oh, it crashed.
I mean, did it crash? Do they go back in and try to?
Oh, I don't know,
Wreckage
but
or anything?
I'm sure it didn't make it to the channel, you know.
Okay.
Probably crashed in Belgium somewhere, but I never did hear what
Right.
happened to it.
And so do they? And I don't know how this works. Do they just turn around like, okay, your crew's fine. Here's another plane.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay.
So you flew 5 more missions after that, right? Was it hard to get back into the plane?
Oh, it wasn't. Well, it was. You didn't look forward to it,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And the closer you see, that was 30 for me. So
Right.
when you got only 5 more to go, you got all nervous.
Exactly.
I'll ask this question. Have you ever seen the Memphis Belle, the movie Memphis Belle?
Yeah.
How realistic was that compared to what you were through? I mean, how Hollywood was it?
Oh, well, that was pretty realistic. The other one, what was the other one? No, not the Memphis Belle, the one that did Gregory. I'm trying to think. 12 O'Clock High.
12 o'clock high.
That was fairly realistic. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one Gregory Peck was in. I believe,
Right.
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, that was.
I guess you flew in all kinds of weather, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
weather was probably the diciest part of
One of the diciest.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several times. After I don't remember which ones it was, you might have to land at a alternate base if your base say got fogged in or so forth.
Right.
You wouldn't land.
Right.
You wouldn't go back there and land.
Right.
No.
So was that the only time you were hit? That
Yeah.
Your plane was disabled?
Yes, that was the only time.
Right.
And I think I don't know if you read that little squeal in the
In the Eagle, I haven't yet.
in the
No.
Eagle.
Uh-uh.
I think it's.
You got a copy of that?
I thought I had a copy of it right here. Let me see.
Oh, I was going to get that's Bill's thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
They'll
gonna-
need something on tape.
Oh, that's right. You told me they're not all posted on the web thing.
No.
are they?
Shoot, I thought I had it right here. The anyway, you remember that Bush, George Bush, President Bush, decided to do a parachute jump on his birthday. You know.
Okay,
Right.
done it the last 2 on his what?
Yeah,
80th and
yeah.
75th. Yeah.
So they, somebody asked me after he did that, said,
Were you-
have you ever thought about jumping? I said, I had my one jump, and that's all I want.
So what was that? I mean, you were on your 30th mission, and you had already dropped your load. You turned around and come back, right?
Right.
And so basically, you just got your left wing shot out of you. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, no pilot, no crew wants to leave their ship. But what was the thought going through your head if you're fixing to jump out? And obviously, I guess you knew you were already over Belgium, so you were in
Well,
safe
if
territory.
you know, if you look out your wing and you see an engine on fire, and you look back behind, there's gasoline coming out the other end, you figure that
Yeah.
parachute's better than trying to ride that down. So we were about I guess about 18,000 feet at that time, you know, which is 3 miles.
So obviously, at some point during your training back in the States, you had to go through that training to learn how to jump.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So at that one particular moment, that little bit of training paid off and, and everybody didn't break a leg landing or so forth.
No.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
Did you know where you were? I mean,
We knew we were over. Oh, but we
you knew you were going to land in friendly territory.
yeah.
Yeah.
But another interesting sidelight to that was that this was right in the general time of the bulge, shortly after.
So it was cold.
It was cold, but the other was, the Germans had parachuted other people in there into Belgium and so forth, so it was kind of a flux area.
Right.
And so we landed I landed in a field, I don't know what it was.
Was it nighttime or daytime?
Daytime.
It was daytime, right? Because you were.
And started looking around. I looked over there, and here came a couple of farmers, I guess, or Belgian guys, with pitchforks. And I thought, oh my gosh, they ain't that type of German. But about that time, a Jeep came with a U.S. soldier, came over the hill and saw me and came over and picked me up and took me into.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, was this one of those things where they hid you out in the barn for 3 days?
No.
Brought you food.
I didn't have all that.
Well, that's how it is in the movies.
Was the rest of your crew
Everybody
close by?
Yeah, everybody got out of it. Oh, here's this thing I was going to get. All right, and a couple of the enlisted men, they said, I don't know whether they actually did it or not, a couple of gunners said that they landed and a couple of Belgian women took them and kept them for a couple of days.
had a few Belgian waffles and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know where that actually
I don't know where we were, sir. We were being held captive. I can see that, yeah. That they were interrogating us.
Yeah. I've got
Get
some
a copy of that.
So you were, when were you born?
21.
In 21. So you were 23 years old. 22, 23 years old.
I was 23 when I got my,
Right.
not quite 23, 22 and a half or
So
something.
you were 24 when you were piloting
Yeah.
the B-17. Is that about the average age of one of the pilots?
That's pretty close, yeah,
Close.
yeah. I think I had a note here. Talking about the crew, and I told you what we had, and I said, I've got here that they were all young men, approximately 20 to 24 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 were from California, 1 from Rhode Island, 1 from Nebraska, some from Texas, and some from Oklahoma. And, everybody just regular old.
Right. On the days you didn't fly, does the crew, did you pal around together, go to R&R together, go out,
Yeah.
play cards, go drink beer, that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Was it so you were a pretty tight knit?
Yeah, it's tight in that group. Yeah, sure was.
Did you have any? Were any of your, and obviously I guess maybe when you started, did you know you'd have to go through 25 or 29 or 35 missions till the end? Was there a mission, a place that you would go maybe 2 or 3 times that your crew liked to fly to?
No, I don't know.
It's like, well, see, that flight was there an easier flight? I mean, they're all.
Oh yeah.
wartime-
Well, nobody liked to go to Berlin,
Right.
because it was the Germans heavily defended it.
Right.
And so if you could get a mission to Belgium or to France or to one of those places, you.
What about some of the targets? Did you? Is this one of those things where you didn't know what you were going to hit until you were up in the air? Did they show you that?
No, they showed that to you at the briefing.
At the briefing?
They told you where you're going.
So what was a target like? Was it was it one of these refineries or was it industrial areas?
Yeah, it was. Let's see here.
Wasn't that when they came out with that new site? What was I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
The new sighting mechanism they used.
For example, they gave you when you left, if you wanted to, they gave you a deal of your target.
An aerial of your target.
Yeah, but they would not put on it where it was.
Right.
Right.
You can say, well, this was mission 1 and I went to Berlin. You got
Right.
Berlin written on the back. They wouldn't let you do that.
Right.
But see, that's some of the targets. That's a bridge, obviously, and it's a
So
industrial
looks like
complex.
it's right in there.
Let's see.
Oh, whoa. There's the before and there's the after. Wow.
And there's another one there. Here.
Mobley.
You know, it's interesting that the average airspeed of the B-17 on a bombing run was 150 miles an hour, which is
I was gonna say that's barely enough to keep it flying. Really?
That's about what it went.
Wow.
It's pretty loud too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What's the okay on the and I hate to use the word, but the simpler, easier missions, if there was such a thing, what was the crew's demeanor when you're going over that way? Does everybody have their game face on, or that?
Oh well, if you had a mission to over to somewhere in France, for example, Rowan or say into Holland, you felt a lot better about that because you weren't going to get the kind of resistance that you got
Right.
if you were going to Hamburg.
Someplace deep into Germany.
But my last, starting with my 29th mission, I went to went to Berlin, Hamburg, Berlin, Leipzig. And those were all tough targets,
yeah.
and they were 9 hour.
I was noticing
deals,
that, and that says 9 hours for the total van. So that's
Yeah.
wow. That's just amazing. Stuttgart. What is recall?
You didn't go. You know,
You got
they canceled it.
Recall. That
canceled it.
recall. Okay. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, wow.
Here's a picture of some of the guys here. This is a real good friend of mine, Harry Quint from California. He's a dentist out there now.
Is this you?
This is me,
Yeah, on the left.
That's Harry.
Okay, all right.
and I'm
So
blank on
this is your crew, right? These are
No, we're just friends.
Oh, okay.
We're just
Okay.
friends. This was in the officers' barracks.
I see.
Yeah.
And there's the picture that was in.
That's when that's that
Yeah.
part of that.
Uh-huh.
We were
That's a great picture.
We were flying cadets.
Yeah, I like that.
Flying cadets.
What would your day be like on the day you wouldn't fly? Would y'all just kind of get up and find out if they didn't wake you up? Obviously, you weren't flying, so it was like, well, what are we going to do today, guys?
Well, basically, you stayed on the base. You know, you didn't go to London every day, but if you had a day or so off, you'd go. But you just at leisure, unless they had some kind of special information they wanted to impart to you. But other than that, it's basically free time. And you know, when you think back about it, you read the stories of the people who were in the front lines over in Germany. They were wet. It was freezing cold. They didn't get hot food. They had to sleep in the ground. You know, you think, God dang, I'm lucky to be where I am.
Good for the Air Corps.
Yeah. So February of '45 was his 30th, and you landed in Belgium. Yeah, that was the bailout.
Yeah.
Was there snow on the ground?
No.
No.
Not that I remember.
Yeah.
What about your last mission?
It was
Gießen, Germany.
Yeah, it was. How long was it?
8.5 hours.
8.5 hours. Yeah. It was not a tough. It wasn't like Hamburg or Berlin or Leipzig or.
Was it? I mean, so the whole crew. I mean, when you took off, you knew it was going to be your last mission, right?
Yeah.
So what was the crew like? They like in the Memphis Belle where they were going, oh, this is the last thing we're going to, come on, let's get there, let's get back.
I really don't remember.
Was everybody just saying, come on, let's get downwind and get back?
Yeah.
Was there any kind of celebration when you got back?
Oh
and
yeah,
landed
there was a
and-
big celebration. Big celebration.
So your mission over Berlin, that was a bombing mission?
All the Berlin ones were bombing missions.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many there were. How many I made? 4 or 5, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're looking down over Berlin. I mean, that's a big city.
Yeah. Well, you know, at 25,000 feet, you don't recognize
Right.
much.
Yeah,
except,
you see that kind
yeah,
of
you
picture.
see that on those pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did it give you any, I guess, special feeling, or more or less just to be knowing that you're striking back deep in the German, you know, getting back at it more or
I
less?
just want to get it over.
You want to get there and get back?
Get it over with. Yeah. I
Well,
think
you're a 23-year-old kid. I mean, that's not too far removed from being a teenager.
No, I didn't.
No.
And you got all this metal under you, and you're flying in a foreign country. I mean,
Dropping what were those 1,000-pound bombs?
500.
500 pound
most of
bombs?
them. Yeah.
that had to be a little intimidating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was intimidating.
Did you wonder, what?
And,
Did you think, well, I'm a long way away from Yorktown?
York.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that lady that told my grandmother they were trusting that to him.
She
and
was right.
probably right. Yeah, I thought she's probably right.
Probably wish you were back in Yorktown.
Yeah. But anyway, it was a camaraderie you had with the people, that you were out risking your life. I don't know if you look, it was about 3 days between 4 days between the missions, something like that.
Yeah, it looks like every third or fourth day.
Yeah.
Well, there's one where you got almost a week off.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait, there's...
The weather determines a lot of
Right,
it,
right.
weather.
Right. So you came back home after
Yeah.
the war was over in Japan,
Right.
because you thought you were getting ready to go
Go to Japan.
fly to Japan, and you came back home. When were you discharged? Or where were you discharged?
Well, in San Antonio.
In San Antonio.
Yeah. They sent you back to the closest
Right.
place,
Right.
So I was just discharged in,
And then you came straight back to school?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I came back in September because I got discharged in July or
Into-
August, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you go home for the summer and.
Yeah.
Now, did you know Joe then, or?
Well, I'll tell you that story. That's
Yeah.
an interesting story. This is a small town we lived in,
Right.
and if you look, here's a street, and, divides.
Uh-huh.
That was Joe's house, and this was my house.
Uh-huh.
Now she's
It's in Yorktown?
Yorktown.
Uh-huh.
She's quite a bit younger than I am.
Uh-huh.
And so that Christmas between Christmas of 45,
Mm-hmm.
I was in school down here at A&M. When we was home for Christmas, and her brother, who was a couple of years older than me, was we were good friends.
Mm-hmm.
So Lem said, that's his brother's name, Lem Duderstedt,
Mm-hmm.
said, we having a party over in Curro New Year's Eve. Why don't you go with me? He was going with a girl in Curro at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'd like to go, but I haven't got a date. I don't know a date. He said, well, it just happens that Joe's here from the University of Texas. That's his sister.
Uh-huh.
Said she'd probably go with you if you'd ask her. So I asked her, and we went out New Year's Eve, and we got married in July.
I'll be darned.
So-
So this is New Year's Eve of 45, almost 46,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
And you got married in July.
Yeah, July.
So the date worked out pretty good.
Yeah,
didn't
it
it?
did.
A good time in Quirrell.
Yeah, and we came down here
Yeah.
after we got married, and because I still had to finish summer school to
Uh-huh.
get my degree. And at that time, Walton Hall, at the North Gate, they had turned that into apartments for married vets.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on the 4th floor of Walton Hall.
Wow.
And I don't know if you've ever been in Walton Hall.
I don't know if
I can't imagine that being a married. That's a
Well, what it is, like say the way they had it set up, here was a room, bedroom. When the students were using it, not married, but before. Here's a bedroom, here's a bedroom. In between the two bedrooms, a commode was over here, and a shower over here. And I guess to protect, Aggies weren't so careful to protect a lot of water getting into the bedrooms. They had railings, so floor curb-like deals, almost like on the street.
Yeah.
So if you got ready to go from one room to the other, you'd go into that hallway, step over the curb. But anyway, we had a good time over there. It was nice. They were all vets living there then.
Yeah.
And so we then we decided to go to Greenville, Mississippi.
Right.
And we were there. And the interesting thing happened at Greenville, Mississippi. We rented the town took over the old air base. It was an old air base at Greenville, and the town took over this air base and set it up, and they rented the officers' quarters out as apartments. So we rented one of those, and that's where we were staying. And one night, a late one afternoon actually, the fire marshal, they had a fire marshal out there that looked after the base, and he came and honked his horn and hollered. Everybody said, well, we got a plane in trouble here that wants to land, and they didn't have any lights on that old field then. Said, come on and get in your car, and we'll all go down here and we'll line up on the runway and shine our lights down the runway for the plane to land. So they were about, this is me and he and a couple others. The 4 cars, we were lined up on the runway like this, shining down the runway. Well, he's supposed to come in over us and land down the runway. So he comes in over us. It's a twin engine, like I think it's a B-25. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a B-26. I believe it was a B-25, or maybe an A-26. I don't know. But anyway, he comes over us and he lands he's way too far down. He overshot. So instead of coming around trying it again, he goes out here, makes a 180-degree turn and lands.
Coming back at you.
And coming back at us. So everybody cranked their cars up to get the heck out of there. But the fire marshal's car, and he was right in the middle of the runway, his car wouldn't start. So he jumped out and ran. About that time, this B-25 or whatever it was went right through his car.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Well, it just pulverized his car.
Wow. And the plane didn't
burn or anything, but it wrecked the plane, because that one engine and everything.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was an interesting Air Force deal.
Yeah. And you've lived here in this house, you and Joe, when you all came back here.
Yeah.
You've lived in here since '52, is that right?
No, I'm trying to think. I don't remember how. We first, when we first came back here, we rented a house over on Moss, let's see, off of Texas Avenue between here and Bryan. It was actually in Bryan. A&M English professor had gone to work on a doctorate, Professor Laverty, and we rented his house while he was gone. There, and then meanwhile we bought a house over on Moss, which is, you know where Moss Street is, by the fire station off of Texas, and we lived there a couple of years, and then we bought this house from Les.
I see.
And so we've been here ever since.
So you really have seen that university change. I mean, the physical plan of it all just really grow up, haven't you?
Right.
Yeah.
And the town.
And the whole town.
The whole town. There wasn't anything here there.
No.
You know where
come up over the hill and
where the Ramada Inn is now.
Right.
You know
Redmond Terrace.
The tower, what do they call it? The towers or whatever it is. You know.
Yeah, University Towers.
University Towers.
Right. Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, that. Before they built that, there was a fella had a little old grocery store, family type deal, and that's when we were living on Moss, I guess. And we'd go over there, and he had a case, frozen food case, and we had a dog, so we'd go over there and buy horse meat. They sold horse meat in little boxes like hamburger and stuff. And so my wife and I were in there one day, and we bought a box of horse meat. And this Japanese lady, Oriental lady, was standing behind us, and she kind of looked at us, and she asked my wife, said, "Would you tell me how you cook that, please?"
Oh, man.
Well, we asked Fido if he likes a rare or medium rare.
Oh,
Let me tell you, I'll tell you two funny stories about Bear Bryant if you want to hear.
okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, because you were here while he was here, right?
yeah. And there was an old fellow from Temple here, had been around for years and years, Luther Jones, Dr. Luther Jones, who was well known. And the College Station Kiwanis Club had what we call a crippled children's clinic.
Mm-hmm.
We ran it every year. That was before they got the rehab center here. Yeah. And so we always had it in Sabisa Hall, upstairs in that kind of annex.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bear came, he took over that annex as a training facility, where his kids ate. And
Right.
so we went over to see if we could still use it for the crippled children's clinic, and the people at Sabisa said, "Well, you got to go talk to Bear Bryant. It's his place now. Turn it over to him." So we go down underneath Kyle Field where they had those offices at that time, and went in and introduced ourselves to Bear, and got talking. And he said, "Well, what can I do for y'all?" We said, "Well, I want to explain this situation to you. We always use this annex as our crippled children's clinic deal, and now I know you have it for your mess hall for your kids, and we wondered if we maybe could work out something." He said, "Well, I think so." So when do you want to use it? And we said, "Well, the way we normally have it, your kids couldn't use it for the noon meal on this particular day."
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of laughed and said, "Well, hell, they can do without a meal that day if you need it. That's a good call." So, they say Bear was always so rough and tough. But and then he had his son, Paul Jr.
Right.
And that's when I was junior high school principal at that time. And Paul Jr. played football for the 7th or 8th grade team. I can't remember which one it was. And we had a game over at Hearn. And Paul and his wife were sitting behind us. My wife and I went in. And there were several parents, scattered around there. And Hearn tried to do something, and Paul Jr. made a nice tackle. He was playing defense at that time. And somebody turned to Bear and said, "Hey, Bear, that was a great play Paul made, wasn't it?" He said, "Well, if he had played his position as he should have, he wouldn't have been near the ball."
Always the coach.
He dropped it, always the coach.
So I thought that was kind of...
That's pretty good.
He was quite a nice guy, actually.
Yeah. That's, we were noting the other day that this is the 50th anniversary of '57 when John David won the Heisman Trophy. And you know John David?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know him real well.
Yeah.
I do know him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a funny story about that, too. I'm keeping that alone.
No.
All right.
John David and Shelby, didn't get along.
Right.
You probably know that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know.
You understand
I was the sports information director over here when they really didn't get along. Yeah. When Shelby got fired.
Yeah, and in fact, they both happened to get their hair cut over at Vince Sant's place.
Yeah, Vince Sant. That's where I get my hair cut.
Yeah,
we call it the Barber of the Stars.
Yeah. But Vince was telling me how he had to be so careful that he didn't schedule an appointment for Bear for both
Shelby
of those
and John David
at the same time because there'd be problems. Well, Shelby, that's when I was working for University National Bank, and Shelby comes in there and one day and comes to my desk and said, "I want to ask you a question." I said, "Well, what do you want, Shelby?" He said, "Has John David Crow been in here this morning?" Now, John David was involved with I don't know if he still is, not somewhat with Don Adam.
Right.
So I said, no, he hadn't been over here this morning, Shelby. I haven't seen him anyway. He said, "Well," said I, "you know what?" Said, "I parked my car out here in the bank parking lot, and I went down to the north gate to do something. When I came back, said somebody had cut one of my tires.
Oh.
And he said, I thought probably John David came in here and did that. I said, no.
Yeah, they never. Well, especially Shelby. Shelby didn't forgive very much. You know, I think John David was willing to let it go, but Shelby never did.
No.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well,
That's a great story.
Yeah.
These are good pictures. You don't have any other pictures of yourself, do you, or anything? Do you?
no, I
Okay.
don't.
Well, that's fine.
Oh, wait, I had one. Well, I showed, was the one with us there. That's
Yeah,
that
with
one.
these guys. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I think you can do that. That might be a
absolutely.
good thing to show right there.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And the patch, you can take a picture of that patch.
Yeah.
And talk about that.
Or will you let me take these to
Yeah,
the station?
sure.
I'm going to take a picture of them and we'll digitally scan
Yeah.
them.
Where is that patch? I thought it was here.
I'll put it
Oh,
down
there.
Here it is. Here it is, right here.
Okay.
And you know what else? I want to get a copy. I'll lay that and copy that.
Okay,
Was this something that was put out like a PR piece for your?
yeah, the Air Force. Yeah, let's see. Army talks for the Air Force. And it's kind of interesting little story in there about from the Eagle's Nest. Yeah. And this was the history that the 306 put out. That's the bomb group that I was with.
Right.
Okay. Now I don't know if you want any of these. That
Oh, let's see here.
that's a story about the.
You know what? I'll go ahead and take it
Take
and
it.
I'll look through there. And if we can copy that, if not, I bet I can probably find that picture on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you
Probably
can.
find some.
But see that I think that has a.
Yeah, the tail number.
306, yeah,
Yeah.
that triangle. H.
Right. Yeah, that's a different different bomb group, right?
Yeah, but this H, I think, means it was a 306.
Oh, okay. So this was.
See
your-
here? See here?
Oh, okay. So the H was your tail designation.
For the whole group, not for the squadron.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, is Kyle's Thursday at 2:30 okay for
That
you?
works. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
And you know where we are, right over there at KAMU TV, right?
Yeah, right by the
Right over there.
by the foreign
Yeah.
students building, right?
Right,
behind
right.
it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's
And if you could be there about 2:20 or so,
Okay.
something like that, and you saw the show, and it's pretty much what you see is what you get. Kyle and you and Kyle will
Okay.
we'll be sitting there in two chairs, and it's the show only is 28 and a half minutes, and so Kyle will sort of lead you through everything. And,
Okay.
and
It goes by real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it? I hope so.
Well, it does.
It goes by quick.
It does.
Okay.
And then it'll be on in probably 2 or 3 weeks. I'll let you know actually when it'll air.
Okay.
We're running a few weeks ahead of time.
That was a good one with Frank.
Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank
yeah.
is something else.
Yeah, there was one story that Frank told us that we didn't have a chance to get in. That was a good story. He was an instructor, you know, in the animal science,
Yeah.
and he was talking about how one time it was the end of the semester, and he was down in Houston at the stock show, and his secretary or somebody called him, and it was the end of the semester, and the secretary called him and said, "Hey, we're looking for your grades for your students. We can't find them anywhere." And Frank said, "Oh shoot," said, "they're sitting right here by me." And the lady said, "Well, they're supposed to be posted here in an hour." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, give all the girls A's and the guys B's." And he did.
And he said no one ever called him. But he said all kinds of girls tried to sign up for his class.
Well, you know, Frank was a real good friend of Head Davis.
Uh-huh,
You know
yeah.
Head, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Remember Head?
the attorney, sure. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he had Head and Frank and this fellow died not too long ago. J.O. Alexander.
Uh-huh.
He was a class of 43, I believe,
Uh-huh.
a Yale leader.
Uh-huh.
We ran around a lot together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, just you're knowing the history of this place, of College Station.
Oh.
There's a few people around. I've interviewed Vincent before, just
Yeah.
for a history type of thing. He's retired now.
Yeah, I know. No.
Yeah. Well, I still go in there for my haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was telling me about how their barbershop there, you know, where
Yeah.
it used to be there at Redmond Terrace.
Yeah.
That was South College Station. That was as south as anything would go. They'd look out and see cars coming up over the hill where Southwest Parkway is now, and that was.
Well, you know that where they built that. The Dobervanies owned that land.
Right.
And they had a dairy there.
Right.
And I'll tell you one more funny story.
Wait before you tell it first. I gotta make sure I got something on. I gotta listen to it.
You know the high building right over here, the consolidated building. It's a conference center now, and you know how it sets up from the road.
Yeah.
Well, when we built that we built that as a high school, and but they wanted to raise it, so we made a deal with Hollick's, another old line family here. And this guy's name was Steve Hollick. He's dead now, but Steve, we talked to Steve. He had some land down this way, further out on kind of a creek-like deal, and so we made a deal with Steve to get some dirt, to get the dirt to build that thing up. And the deal that he made with us was so much a load for the dirt, and we had to take it out of the land so that it formed a little pond, and a dam for it. And when it got full of water, we were supposed to stock it with fish and 2 cases of pearl beer.
Do they even make pearl beer anymore?
In San Antonio, I don't know when.
Brewery still around?
I don't know. I don't know. I remember I took a tour of it one time when I was a kid. I grew up in San Antonio.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. That's good.